Hi, everyone.
Hello. We're in the Afterword of Ray Franz's In Search of Christian Freedom, page 695. He's now dealing with what about other religions? If we're so disillusioned that we're not considering going back to the Watchtower, what then? The fact that there are serious wrongs to be found within the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses does not suddenly make everything right in other religions. They too have serious problems, which at times they candidly acknowledge. I am satisfied that many religious organizations are less authoritarian than the one I left, that many allow for a fair measure of freedom of expression. There is today, in some respects, greater freedom to express difference in the Catholic Church than exists in some of the smaller religions, that of Jehovah's Witnesses included. This factor of reduced authoritarian domination would appear to offer a degree of advantage. Yet I know that membership in any of the denominations carries with it the expectance, at least, of acceptance and support of the particular teachings that distinguish that particular denomination from the others. Though denominational members may downplay the seriousness of the differences separating them from others, particularly when encouraging people to join, the initial formers of the denomination obviously considered those distinctive teachings as sufficiently important and serious to cause them to divide off from whatever previous affiliation they were part of. And the present leadership must view them as at least sufficiently serious to prevent a reuniting with that previous affiliation or a uniting with yet some other.
Reviewing the world situation, former Roman Catholic theologian Charles Davis made this comment, and now he's got a quote from Charles Davis's book, Question of Conscience. Quote, "Christians urgently need an adequate and appropriate social expression for their faith. I am thinking of the innumerable unattached Christians there are at present, people who in their essential outlook are Christians, who perhaps have professed the Christian faith in the past, but who simply cannot contemplate or have not been able to endure life within the present churches. Having had no alternative manner of being Christians put before them, they have drifted away from the Christian faith. The faith of many of these people would be brought to maturity if they could be shown how to live and socially structure the Christian faith without imprisoning themselves within the obsolete structures of the existing denominations. To continue to play the present institutional game within and across the present denominational structures is to hinder the coming into full visibility of a radically different and better form of Christian presence in the world. And it will be to watch an increasing number of people ceasing to profess the Christian faith because they identify it with the present churches. They do not recognize that it is often the Christian faith that leads them to reject institutional structures, inimical to the self-understanding and freedom of man and to the Christian truth and love." And that's the end of his quote.
He acknowledged that the majority of those professing Christianity today obviously are to be found in the denominational systems, and that many are sincerely working within their framework. At the same time, he explained why he personally felt that a course of disaffiliation is nonetheless advisable, saying, quote, "Disaffiliation is required because one must recognize that the existing social structures of the churches are inadequate and obsolete. Insofar as they can be made useful, they must be regarded as limited in function, relative in value, and essentially changeable. The Christian should embrace his open situation and refuse to be enclosed in any total organization. Obedience to the gospel and to the Christian community as a whole will frequently demand opposition to the claims, prescriptions, and official attitudes of the existing church institutions. This is not an invitation to individual license. The individual Christian will endeavor to ground his thinking upon the Christian tradition as a whole and will communicate with other Christians. But complete conformity to the official line of his church is irresponsibility as a Christian." End of quote.
I do not pretend to be able to respond to requests by offering something that is appealing in the sense of what one might like in the way of affiliation and association. I think we each need to meditate on the picture of the writer of on the picture the writer of Hebrews draws in the latter part of his letter. He first describes how, after their blood was offered in sacrifice, the bodies of the sacrificial animals were taken outside the camp of Israel to be burned, and then says, quote, and this is quoting from the New Revised Standard Version, Hebrews 13:11-14. Therefore Jesus also suffered outside the city gate in order to sanctify the people with his own blood. Let us then go to him outside the camp and bear the abuse he endured. For here we have no lasting city, but we are looking for the city that is to come.
Anne Ray has a footnote, too, about Charles Davis in his book, A Question of Conscience. He says, this in no way implies that there has been any renunciation of claimed power by papal authorities. While there is greater freedom of discussion, church officials are quick to react if any public statement is viewed as creating any doubt as to their authority and its scope. As Charles Davis says, quote, nowadays, as long as a theologian can remain within the realm of pure theology, it is increasingly less likely he will be disturbed. He has to be cautious, but the church authorities are coming to know that there's little they can do now to control theological thinking, but touch a practical point which need not affect the Christian faith itself, but simply official policy or the established order, and there is uproar. Well, if anything, Charles Davis is even more disillusioned than Ray seems to be with institutions, with phrases like irresponsibility of, as a Christian, about affiliation, direct commitment or affiliation with any of the existing institutions.
Yeah. But at the same time, it seems contradictory here because he says people who leave drift away from the Christian faith. And he's saying that's because they don't realize that they could carry it on and be more noticeable. Like, what was the phrase here? Hinder the coming into full visibility of a radically different and better form of Christian presence in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, well, exactly.
What is that?
Give me the give me the way that could happen if you're on your own in your own living room. This doesn't seem very practical to me. He talks about being imprisoned in denominations, obsolete structures and existing denominations. And yet to me, this is the accusation that's made against marriage now. That we don't need marriage. We can just live together. But without marriage, the reason there's marriage is for covenant. You're making a covenant, a public covenant, that you're going to be together as mates. Well, I think it's better to make that covenant, regardless of how things turn out, for good, for better or worse. You've made a covenant. You've made a commitment.
Publicly.
A public commitment. I don't think there's this authoritarian, like you can't question anything. At least it's not been our experience. We've been to a number of different churches, and they have their own difference to another denomination, but they don't seem to
imprison.
Imprison or hold you to it.
No.
If you say, well, that particular aspect I'm not in agreement with, or it's not the way I think, they don't kick you out of the church.
Charles Davis, though, wrote this in the 1960s, and this is the very point at which the Catholic Church was going through its biggest transition in modern centuries. The Vatican II Council, where things did loosen up a lot in terms of application. And here, I think it's ironic, since you're talking marriage, that he leaves and he gets married to a fellow Catholic. But later he drifts back into Catholicism. I don't know, back is probably not the right expression.
He returns.
his disillusionment, he got disillusioned with his disillusionment. That you can't live in this anarchy, which I think he's anticipating. He calls it here a radically different and better form of Christian presence. But unless you can define that somehow and structure it somehow, you're going to have disappointments.
Yeah. How will it
disappointments.
continue? It's like I said about habits. You know, the only way you can cultivate good habits is to continue to do them, to have some structure where you have something in place that you do that you know is good.
Yeah. So apparently Davis had a change of mind. I don't think Ray ever did, though, about his disillusionment with institutional religion.
And I think here you're only talking about witnesses and the Catholic Church. And I don't know. Ray says he never felt inclined to be affiliated with any other denomination, but I don't know what experience he had
Or Davis.
with other denominations. Yeah, or
Davis was Catholic, and it's very easy to get disillusioned with large structures like Catholicism, but how much experience he had outside, I don't know. We'll put a link into Ray's earlier discussion of Charles Davis right at the beginning of this book. And next time, he's brought up a very interesting idea here. How do we go outside to Jesus? That is, outside the camp to Jesus. Where's he going to go with that thought?